Let's start with the URC upset, Munster. Grahamo Roundtree.
What a game of rugby. I've actually, and I haven't done this for a long time, since Scotland beat England for the 9th time in a row, I haven't gone back and watched the game twice. I went back and watched this game twice. It was unbelievable. So just setting the scene, like Munster, we spoke about them last week, going into the game with 2-3 of their best players missing effectively. So Snyman, who was injured, Malachi Fekitoa as well, and Nash. So they all got injured, and Conor Murray as well in the lead up to that game. We did wonder what team Leinster would field. They did field a largely second team.
You went for the second team, didn't you, initially? And then I convinced you that it's probably going to put the first team out. And you went, yeah, I agree with you, actually. They will put the first team out.
And then they went third team.
And then they went the Shags. The under-14s played.
Yeah, so they did go largely second team, but Ronan Kelleher was playing, Jack Conan, Charlie Naitai, who's coming back, who was brilliant, Robbie Henshaw as well, and Josh van der Fleer was on the bench, who came on early for a nasty injury to Will Connors. Just to go back to my initial point, the physicality, I don't think I've seen a club game. It's a big statement. That is one of the best club games I have ever seen. And it was at the RDS. There wasn't a sellout there. I think they could sell 28,000 to 29,000, and there was 27. The atmosphere, watching it on TV, was electric. Munster very ballsy, the same as what Glasgow did against Munster last week. Munster had probably 4 or 5 chances to take the sticks, and they didn't. They went to the corner and kept getting turned over. So you're thinking, here we go.
Surprised me, that did. It surprised me.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and another narrative in the lead-up as well was Jack Crowley, who got the winning drop goal, which we'll get on to. Starting at 12, he's only played there like 6 times or whatever, but to a man, and I wrote a few names down, then I found myself just writing everyone's names down of the Munster players. Their work off the ball, the work rate, and that's where you can judge a team, right? So it isn't about line breaks and scoring tries and big collisions. Yes, you do have them things, but the work rate off the ball was just like, so I've not seen a team this year play like that. So they deserve to win. Leinster, even with their second team, had a couple of options. Ryan Baird scored an unbelievable try that never was.
Jim, that was you against India. Same thing.
It what actually was. Very, very similar.
What about the wheels on him?
Oh, he's an unbelievable athlete. I've been talking him up for the last 3 years. He hasn't quite burst through. But
he did it at the weekend, but it got pulled back for the knock-on, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Jenkins is quick as well in the second row.
Jason Jenkins, quite similar off the offload from Henshaw. Leinster looked very dangerous when they got the opportunity. So you're thinking, well, Munster have given it everything they've got, and Leinster are just going to have too much class, and that's what you thought in the lead-up. And then there was a couple of big moments in the game.
The story of the game for me was Munster had 20 offloads and Leinster only had 3, one of which they scored from. So that shows how good Munster's defence was, but how you probably think the tables are turning. You expect Leinster to offload loads, but it was all Munster offloading.
Yeah, so all Munster in the first half, and then Leinster do what they do. Jason Jenkins scores a try in 38 minutes. They go in to the sheds, leading 10-6. So you're thinking, oh, here we go. Munster come back out again in the second half. Loads of pressure early on. They get a penalty. You're thinking, just take the sticks, go 10-9. No. Instead of going to the line out, they go tap and go. And then friend of the show, Ty Burns scores. And then they're leading 13-10. And then Leinster start going through the gears and start turning it on. And Joe McCarthy scores an unbelievable try as well. And then you're thinking, that's it. That's all she wrote.
On that, Jim, the big thing was Frawley missed a relatively simple conversion, didn't he, from that try, McCarthy try, which ended up being so pivotal because Jack Crowley ends up getting the drop goal.
He does. And Jack Crowley gets all the plaudits for that drop goal, but Gavin Coombs, again, gets a turnover on his try line at like 77 minutes or something. I think I'm trying not to go too fanboy on them because Grahamo Roundtree, but...
He is now Grahamo Roundtree, right?
The way that Munster have been the last few weeks, beat the Stormers, beat Glasgow, beat Leinster, and then they're going to go back to Cape Town.
All unbeaten at home. So they've taken the Stormers' record, taken Glasgow's record, and now Leinster's. All 3 teams of it. They had 5 away games on the spin, haven't they? How crazy is that? So then you go to a semi-final. I get you're in an away quarter-final, away semi-final, but their games prior to that as well, 2 away games. They haven't played at Thomond Park since about February. But here they are. And the start of their season was shocking, wasn't it? If we're being really honest, they were poor at the start of the season and people question it. Mike Prendergast has a massive impact off the field, coaching-wise, and how they attack. And now, here we are. Who are we backing? Graham O'Rowntree, good friend, or John Dobson, good friend?
I can't say it because last week John Dobson called me out. He texted me and said, come on, Connacht. So we'll keep it for a couple of weeks. We can make a decision. But the thing is with Munster, with this 2-week break, or the fact that there's a game, a Champions Cup final, and the travel that's going to be involved for them getting down there, the fact that they'll potentially get some of their players back, the likes of Conor Murray, RG Snyman, if he passes his HIA as well, Nash coming back in, Malachi Fekitoa as well. They're going to go in fully loaded down to the Stormers. And again, you look at the pitch down in there, we can get onto that game. It's going to be a very different game. But physically, to a man, if anyone wants to see a game of rugby, go back and watch that. It was absolutely phenomenal.
The thing I loved about it as well, that drop goal that goes over, Jim, he literally does the same celebration, finger in the air, like O'Gara did years ago. And O'Gara was an absolute legend in that red jersey, but he's literally mimicked his celebration when he slotted the winner. What a drop goal. What a pair of spuds. Absolutely massive spuds from Jack Crowley.
We talked briefly about Leinster picking a second-rate team. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Is it disrespectful for the competition, or is there a level of arrogance because they'd selected those teams in the past and done well?
Do you know what? I kind of respect it a bit because I'll go back to our time at Leicester, right? So we played the Anglo-Welsh Cup and we got to the final of the Anglo-Welsh Cup, and the easy decision was to pick the first team, but a lot of the Shags had played every game to get to the final. And Pat Howard was the coach and he picked all the Shags in the final and we won it. And it was the right thing to do because they got us to that level and got us to the final. Leinster, it's the same attitude. Leo Collin, who was obviously influenced by Pat Howard, he was part of that team at the time. He understood that. Those guys that played the game at the weekend, a lot of them have done all the donkey work to get to that final in the URC, because we know some of the frontliners don't play very much in the URC. So when I looked at the teams, I thought, fair play to Leo. He's backed his boys, because there must be a very hard motivation within that Leinster camp. And we spoke to people before. Bernard Jackman talked about actually just getting to be able to train on Tuesday. You've got to motivate the players. So you can't all of a sudden get to a final or a semi-final and go, yeah, lads, thanks for all your efforts all season. We're going to pick the big dogs now, because that might drive a wedge. You never know, do you? So I respected him for doing it, but does he regret it now? Part of him would be yes, but part of him I think could be like, no, they got us there, so we better go and fucking win the Champions Cup this weekend, because they may end up with nothing again.
Andrew, that's the thing. That's the big issue that could potentially arise. You think against La Rochelle they don't win, and we've spoken about, not that Clermont and Leinster are the same, but these teams that start making the semis and the finals and they're dominant all the way through the season, and then they lose that momentum, whatever. I mean, there was 1 point in it at the weekend. So
we spoke to Friendy about how tough it was going to be for Connacht over in South Africa. Bit of a step too far for them, do you think?
Connacht started unbelievably well. What about Matt Hansen's footwork to score that try? They go 8-0 up. Obviously, the Stormers bounce back. Martin Lebot with a pinpoint perfect crossfield kick to Davids. And then Lebot scores a worldie of a try from the counter-attack that as well.
So un-South African, the way that Stormers play, which I'm saying with all due respect, because they've got a real attacking game and less physicality, even though they are physical. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then Davies makes the break off the first phase, bounces someone, gets a sick offload away, Lebok scores his second try. And at that point, Andy Rowe, you're right, you think that's too much for the Connacht boys. They've travelled, we've seen these around the ears in economy and all that stuff. By the way, did you see we got our boy Finlay Bealham, his business class? He was thanking me. He was saying thank you on social media. Then you look at the game and Connacht fight their way back into it, don't they? Get back to 24-20, 64 minutes in. Watch the try from the Stormers. Have a look at it. Duplessis with a worldie of a seed from just outside his 22. On to Nell, who puts a bit of footwork on. They end up going up the outside, and Devet scores a try, which you think is enough. But then back come Connacht. Rawston scored an unbelievable try. Watch some of the hands Aki flicks it on, then the ball out the back and all this. It was just class from Connacht. And you're thinking, this is an unbelievable game of rugby. The pitch wasn't great, but the tries that were being scored were on a different planet at times. Yeah, and then they're 31-25 down at Connacht, getting close. About 10 minutes to go, and then Daly with a massive error from a pretty innocuous kick. He's got all the time in the world to take it, drops it. Daimani picks it up. Ridiculous offload, number one. We'll come on to his second ridiculous offload in a bit, but my God, what a player Daimani is as well.
Ridiculous. His backstory is unbelievable as well. Now, I don't want to be negative here, but this is me sticking up for the Connacht lads.
I just said how good the game was.
I know. I am sure there was an incident in the game where John Porch gets taken out in the air. I haven't time-stamped it because we know books all over the place, but I'm just saying, which was missed by Mike Adamson. Not that I'm...
You just said Mike Adamson should have gone to the World Cup. Why are you being horrible, Jim?
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes and everyone can pick out things as well, but I'm sure it was John Porch. I'm going to look at it. If it wasn't, then I'm wrong, but I think it was a turning point in the game where he gets taken out in the air. Just saying, but Dobbo's going to be all over me this week, but he's got 2 weeks to calm down. And he wants me out there as well. He's like, mate, can you come out and sit on the Stormers bench and just...
Let's go. Can we go?
Okay, all right, then you can come.
It's a pretty exciting final now, isn't it? Because you've got two contrasting styles. It's almost like Munster play finals footy the way that they play as well, isn't it?
I'm very happy to see a Munster team, whether or not it was a Munster, a Leinster, a Glasgow, a Connacht in the final, just to have that balance. And the fact that it's in Cape Town, you saw the reaction from the Stormers players. They thought, I think a lot of people thought, most people thought outside of Munster that the final was going to be in the RDS, the back garden of the Leinster players in Ireland. And the fact that they've got another home final with a team that is in form like a Munster, this is what we wanted from a neutral for the URC, is to throw different teams into the mix. I know we got a bit of a shock last year by seeing the Bulls when they beat Leinster as well. The Stormers, current champions against the informed team. If you look at the games, and I mentioned it earlier on, Munster beat the Stormers in their backyard only 3 or 4 games ago. So they're going back, and the narrative around that, the energy, the tickets that they've sold for the game, I imagine there'll be some travelling support from Munster as well. This is, and you know what, the level of the games, I spoke about the Munster-Leinster game, how good it was. Goody said, and I agree with him, the Connacht Stormers game was just as good in a different way. The level of the URC now is just going through the roof, and yeah, the final was going to be awesome.
Delighted for Munster, delighted for Graham O'Rowntree. It was unbelievable. And then the Stormers with their performance as well. We got a proper final on our hands, haven't we?